Hello, this is Dale Matthews. This is the Dale and Mike Show, and sitting in for Mike tonight is Bill Hunker. Hello, Bill.
Good evening, Dale. How are you doing this evening?
I'm okay. So we've got a variety of small details. It's kind of like this illustration over my shoulder. That's the center of the spokes of a bicycle, and the small little details. Also, because Bill and I are spokesmen for the news, right, Bill?
Yeah, spokespersons, aren't we? Yes.
Spokesperson. So now person has the word son in it, and that's male oriented again. See, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Spokes entity.
yeah, spokes entities. That's what we were. Spokes entities. Right. Okay. So there are a lot of little things to talk about that happened this week, and they add up into this odd pattern of things. You've heard me talk about that before, patterns. But Bill's going to start off with a meeting that he went to last night. Tell us about that meeting, Bill.
The county fire out in Merlin had I don't know if it was an impromptu, but I learned about it very late yesterday and decided to go. And what surprised me most was I hadn't heard about it, and it was just an accident that I did, kind of. And there was about 125 people there.
That's a
And
lot of people.
that was for Merlin, and for a fire issue like this, I thought that was a very strong turnout. Um, they gave their background. They ended up showing their personalities, talking very much about how they are accredited. And then,
Sorry, Bill. Sorry, bud. For those who have joined us and they haven't seen the show in a while, could you please try to summarize for us what is the controversy with these people? It used to be inland, and now they're under new management. The old management's not involved at all. This is now called County Fire and Security. Tell us what the issues are, please, first.
the issue is that they got notice that something was going on that had a lot of reference to franchise. And they did not know how they stood versus a franchise. This is coming from the county to them in a certified letter. And they say, okay, we didn't have a franchise. And there are a lot of rules and regulations that are over and above what the national and state regulations are. And they just didn't know where they stood. So they began to delve into this with the county commissioners. It seems that there's something going on here where meetings have been changed and notices have been changed and people geared up to have public comments, and it was moved. And so there's a frustration levels that they don't know how they relate. So they were calling these people together to say, here's an update. They had been actually calling some of their customers to say, we don't know where we stand here, but there's a shift of some sort. The answers they get seem to change, and it was very interesting to hear the history. So as we all talk, as they talked and we listened, they passed out the ordinance that they're talking about, and we all got a chance to read it. I had read it about a week ago. Somebody had forwarded it to me, and I was very taken with the fact that it seemed to be written by someone who was on the inside with the BCC. Everything hinged back to, oh, we get to decide this, we get to decide that. If there's changes, then we'll decide. And I thought, no, this isn't about fire. This is about control by the BCC when it comes down to it. I can't tell you what's really going on in the background because I don't know. But I know that here is a couple of guys that have worked through the harder part of trying to get a fire company off the ground. They have had their certification number, which is a very important number because of insurance companies, give you a higher or lower rate if the fire company you're with has a higher or lower, in fact, they have a lower rating.
Now, in this particular case, the lowest rating, that lowest ISO rating, is 1.
One.
And last year, the big fire company in this area, this is subscription service now. So we're not talking about like the Grants Pass Fire Department. We're talking about out there in the county. Last year, the big boys on the block, they had a rating of 6. Now, just over the last week or so, their rating improved to 5. Remember, 1 is the best. And now County Fire is at 6. Well, that's pretty good. And if I understand right, the city, Grants Pass City Fire Department, is at a 2, which is terrific. But of course, they're funded by your tax dollars. These guys are at a 6, which is exactly where their competitors were. And they wanted to join the Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association
Right.
because in order to be to work together with 911, pretty important in order to cooperate with the other fire departments in the county, including the city, in order to buy water. Yeah, they have to buy the water from the city to put out a fire if it's a city fire hydrant, really. But nobody would work with them. Nobody. Unless they were members of the Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association. So they tried to join and they were said, oh, shouldn't be any problem. And then they find out, oh, we're changing our bylaws and we have no ability to accept new members. What?
Yeah. We
What?
Our bylaws don't cover that, and so you wonder how did all the chiefs get in there prior? If the bylaws don't cover how you get a new member,
Too many chiefs and no Indians. That's the problem.
that's right. So so they just laid out exactly where they stand, told about their new rating, and many people spoke. I got up and spoke and said, the way you end up getting a hearing is going to the meetings on Wednesday and talking your 3 minutes. And I stressed that as much as I possibly could. It seems there are people who are even concerned, since they can't, as you said, talk through the 911 or be involved in the 911. Um, uh, uh, what would I say? When a call comes into 911, they do get alerted. They get alerted with an email, and they just have been upgraded somehow recently into a phone rings, but they don't get the straight 911 call that first goes out. And they tried. Well, someone said, just a minute, my house is on fire, and you're being stopped from knowing about it. In essence, this is a public safety issue, and someone is stopping public safety in my area. And so there was quite a bit of discussion on that. What was interesting, Dale, is that early on in the meeting, they said, you know, we've been trying to get to be a member of the
Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association.
Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association for over a year at least. And it came through Wednesday in an email. Oh, by the way, we're going to admit you to the Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association. They linked it to their show with you on Monday. They said, isn't it a coincidence that on Monday this was all explained on the show, and on Wednesday, after over a year, oh, we're going to, and in addition to that, an email came in saying, by the way, we'd like to apologize. So they haven't received the letter, as they said, but they are being told they will receive a letter. I said, be sure and enter that into the public record. Something's not right there, and that's one of the reasons I went. I wanted to hear it from them. I wanted to see their faces. These look like straight-ahead guys who are trying to do a decent job. They're lifetime county residents with families. I got good vibes off of them, and I don't understand why we're trying to stop competition. There's
Well,
plenty of
one of the things here is that when Cheryl Walker was not happy that there was a subscription helicopter service. Subscription helicopter, yeah, if you have some kind of accident way out in the county, the helicopter comes down, picks you up, flies you off to the hospital. And so there was an outfit in Merlin that wanted to be involved. And there were people who said, you know, we don't know anything about their helicopters. We're not really sure of their ability to do this. We're a little leery about this. Our customers out in the Illinois Valley would really prefer not to. Who are you to push this on us? And those guys were, Cheryl Walker went to the mat for them. They're in Merlin. They ought to be allowed. Well, none of that helped. And the guys went out of business here and they moved up the coast and they're doing some business, I think, in Tillamook. Okay, so then these guys have this fire service. It's run by completely new management. It's in the same place as Inland used to be, which had kind of a bad reputation for a couple of reasons. And I went and visited them too. And these guys would like to do this. Another Merlin company, similar circumstance. Well, when Cheryl Walker wasn't happy with this helicopter service, she had herself, as a county commissioner, and her husband, Martin Hill, both put onto the 911 board. Well, who's going to say no? It's a county commissioner and her husband. And so now that these guys were having trouble, even trouble with 911, Cheryl Walker is supposed to be their county liaison. Wouldn't raise a finger for them, wouldn't help, was actively working against their interests. Well, what's up with this?
Yeah. No, that's par for the course as far as the personality there. I'm concerned that when we see today, is it AMF that just bought
AMR?
AMR just bought Rural Metro.
Yes, they did.
And
this prediction that everything is consolidating into one super company, well, super company as far as Josephine County is involved, kind of looks like that's true.
One guy spoke last night and said the only thing he really did hear clearly was that they wanted a one-stop shopping. That doesn't sound like competitive, good business
it sure
capital.
Doesn't. No, it sure doesn't.
It's because somebody said, well, what's the reason? What's the reason? And this one man who had attended the meeting said, the only thing I heard was one-stop shopping. I'm concerned, we champion by verbiage economic development in the county, and then here's a couple of guys that are really just the icons for economic development by the bootstraps and making it happen. Wives, children involved, volunteers, and all of a sudden things are stacked against them. Why? Why now? Why after?
Who is the economic development liaison?
Yes, that would be a Cheryl Walker, as I understand.
Yes, sir. It all links back to Cheryl Walker, buddy. Okay, so I got them on the phone today. They wanted all three of those guys to talk with me on the phone, on a phone conference. We didn't videotape it, but I'll tell you what happened. And basically, they're crediting us. They tell me that they mentioned us a couple of times last night, and thank you to badcounty.com. They originally were kind of reticent to talk to us because they thought we were the courier. No, we're not the courier. Oh, sort of the opposite of the courier. And so they said, it's amazing right after your show where there we were. And then I went on Bill Meyer's show on KMED radio, and he posted the county commissioners meeting up on his Facebook site. All kinds of people were responding. We got more response from this one story, the nightly story that Mike and I did with them. We got more response from that than any other story since the Sugar Pine Mine guys. All kinds of people wanted to see this story, and even if they don't, I don't get subscription service. I don't need it. I live in Grants Pass City, but the details were outrageous. You got to have to get into this, and this organization to even exist. You have to be a member of this group, Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association. And then suddenly, just out of nowhere, they say, "We're not accepting any new members."
Yeah.
And then Ginny Hall, who's the emergency services manager with the county, she comes in and she's sitting in front of the commissioners. And I'm listening to this meeting, and it's kind of, sorry, guys, it's a little bit boring. And she's talking about this way. No, suddenly, this is not boring. What do you mean minimum standards? Minimum standards, and if you don't meet the minimum standards, what, you don't get the seal of approval? Maybe you don't get a franchise? Why is the county involved in franchising? So just if somebody wants to get the lower price service, which seemed to be the problem, buddy, If they wanted to get the lower price service, well, the buyers will vote with their feet. Why do we have we need to get involved? Think of the children. You know what? I don't think that's what's motivating you here. The children.
Yeah, nobody's children are seen around. No,
Yeah.
it's just another whack-a-mole. Only this one affects a lot of people, and I'd like to see them really rise up and get involved and make a noise on this, because at several levels this is wrong. And I did hear a comment, and I didn't follow it through because it was from the audience, and I didn't know the person. They disappeared. Somebody said that they heard that Wally ended up saying something to the effect.
Wally Hicks, the county attorney, yes.
Yeah, Wally Hicks, the attorney, and he ended up saying something about, you've got to be careful
Yes.
about public safety issues. Were you involved or hear that?
Yes.
Were you?
He actually said that it may be that a company, no one ever mentioned these guys by name, a company might think that we're trying to run them out of business. Cheryl Walker, oh no, that would never be the case. We put out the video. This is because all they have to do is meet the minimum standards, which are now changing. You're changing the minimum standards. And who wrote that? Now, who do you think wrote that? Well, the big wheels at the Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association feel that, it's absolutely essential to change the minimum standards. And at one point, Keith Hicks says, well, here it says something about 24-hour availability. And the guy from the Rogue Valley Fire Chiefs Association says, well, actually, nobody meets that at the moment. No, then why is that one of the minimum standards? Come on, you guys. You're targeting just so close on, it seems like, on this Merlin company that you don't even meet those standards.
Yeah, and by the way, County Fire does have fully staffed 24-hour in their one place that they have, where the other one has 7 and they only staff 3.
That's nice. Okay, so we're going to roll back a little bit to Monday. Okay, this is what's happened this week. This is the details we were talking about. I went on Monday morning, early Monday morning, to a SORA meeting. No, not Southern Oregon Horse Racing Association, Southern Oregon Resource Alliance. I was a little disappointed to find that when we had this meeting, about so many people showed up. 61 people spoke in favor of mining moratorium on our rivers here and rivers throughout Southern Oregon, and stopping mining activities. So many people showed up from the environmental community, from Northern California, from way out on the coast, from up in Klamath Falls, from here in Grants Pass, especially the Illinois Valley, and only 3 people. I asked a question, so that was kind of in between. And only 2 people actually spoke against it. I think they were brave, and one of the guys was kind of nervous. But so many people were speaking, and many of them said, ought to be a total ban on mining altogether. Really? Total ban on mining? Yes, we can recycle everything. Yeah, I'm not quite sure that's true. So we're going to post the public comments. We have to do it in 3 parts because you can imagine how long 61 public comments would take. We can't play it all. But what I've decided to do is put it up with one bookend, like the entire statement from a person that was like at the very beginning. That would be Grandma Aggie, who's a elder in Native American tribes, and then bits and pieces of all kinds of people with a pretty good representation of what they had to say, and then ending that with Ron Gibson, who's also Native American in origin, and those are the bookends. And then the next one ending with Jim Frick, who says, wait, you're not going to have iPods or cars or anything unless they got some kind of metal. And then I'm at the end of the last one, where at least I ask the question, guys, can we not make room for a couple fellows up with a put kind of, really, do we need to put them out as well? They're not strip mining. They're with a little pan and stuff. Can we make no room for them at all? Really? There's some economic tourism there. Gold tourism, it's really popular in Europe. Can we make room for everybody? And I got a little bit of applause. Yeah, well, okay, maybe we should be a little reasonable. This law will not be reasonable. But, can't we be a little reasonable? So that'll go up tonight. right after the show. We'll put that up. So I went to Sora and I said, I tried to be nice about it, but I said, you guys talk a lot about what you're going to do and how you're going to go to these meetings, and you're really going to give them hell, and you're out here and you're pushing hard. And then I saw several of you were there at that meeting, and Jim Frick, he did stand up, but there were some other people who were there, and you didn't say anything. Why didn't you say anything? And Helen Scott, who's been a member of SORA, I think from the beginning, well, we don't need to be criticized. And I said, well, you know what? I think you do. I'm not a member of SORA, but I think you kind of do, because if you guys are going to advocate for something, you actually have to, advocate for it.
Yeah.
And we face this. I mentioned this in a previous. We face this every single week. That's not a friendly atmosphere for anybody. As the county clerk says, those who question government are morons. That's nice.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm one of those morons, I guess, because I questioned hey, do we need to do it this? Do you have to break the law? I mean, do you really need to call us names? Do you need to be yelling at us? What's up with this? So Jim Frick's not my favorite guy in the world, but I said, Jim, you did it. And I left because they made it clear you're not welcome at this meeting, you skunk at the dinner party. And afterwards, Jim Frick, I was told, said, you know what? Dale's right. Oh, really? Thanks, Jim. If we're going to advocate for stuff, we actually have to, advocate for stuff, even in a room that's filled full of people who feel another way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't understand the overwhelming, you get issues like this that are explosive or touchy, at least touchy. Usually there's a pretty good balance. Some outspoken people on one side, some outspoken people on the other side, and somewhere in the middle is reasonableness. I'm surprised that there was the overwhelming negative, and not just negative I'm hearing, but absolutely just a ban. Just stop it all.
Oh, forever. No mining of any kind. And they had children. Okay, look, are there lessons to be learned? That's rather than just complaining about people who were actually at the meeting. I'm not talking about people who didn't, I forgot I got to wash my hair. I don't mean those people. I mean people who were sitting there and didn't say a word. Really? I got up at the end. I wasn't going to speak. I'm there videotaping where there were two cameras. But I mean, somebody's got to say something sometime. Hey, what about this? And so, can we make room? Can we cooperate with anybody? Is there ever room for another point of view other than yours? I feel some sympathy for them. I don't necessarily like the idea of a nickel strip mine right next to a resource like the river. But don't tell me, miners are out there and they're with this little tiny dredge and they're killing fish. And the guy that said that was a fisherman. You're killing the fish.
Yeah.
As many as you can. What are you talking about? Okay, all right. So now on Tuesday, I went to, sounds almost the same, I went to a really interesting meeting. It's your fault, you guys in the audience. It's your fault. I went to a solid waste meeting. Hey. And they were supposed to be talking about, see if this sounds familiar, new regulations that are going to be put out by the county about how to deal with solid waste and what kind of penalties are going to be. Didn't we just have a vote about that not too long ago? Do you guys remember that?
Yep.
The four junk ordinances? Junk ordinances. And so here they are. They're talking about what they're going to do in a little tiny room in coordination with the city. So I went there, and as I'm coming in, one of the county guys says, "You're here for the solid waste order." I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, that's not going to be on the agenda." Okay. So I waited anyway, just in case something interesting happened. Well, it did. Not necessarily tied in with county government, but we had a guy there that lives in the city, and he says, "I just wanted to let you know about solid waste, and we'll put the videotape up so that you can see it. I'll do the best I can to summarize it. Solid waste. Oh, I can hardly wait for the movie." Okay. So the guy says, by the way, I visited one of the local elementary schools where, some of these schools I don't know if you guys know this, but some of the schools in our area, I've been told that they're serving as many as 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, early dinner, I guess, to some of the students. Really? They're getting all of their meals from the school. Really? We have to confirm this. I've heard this from only one source. I cannot confirm it, just one source. Unlike the courier, we don't put out stuff with just one source. This is what I've heard. We'll check into it. So this guy says, well, I went to one of the schools, and he says, I was surprised that they were throwing away half of the food. Remember when we were in school and they served us a school lunch? Ooh, okay. They were throwing away half of the food because the kids don't like it. They don't want to eat that stuff. Eat your cauliflower. I don't want cauliflower. Well, we're not going to serve you pizza. Yeah, that's what I want. They don't want, so they would rather starve. Remember when you were a kid? Would you eat cauliflower if it was served to you with chocolate sauce? Probably not. Phil?
Yeah, I have heard the same rumor, unconfirmed, that you have, that there are certain students who do look to the schools for their nutrition, for their food. Um, I'm I don't know, that's a bailiwick I've never wandered into to know what makes that all go around. But you know, given government, somebody's profiting.
Well,
Somebody,
well, the guy there says, he says, our goal is to fill up their little tummies. Totally with you on that, bud. Absolutely. But we need to meet certain federal guidelines. I mentioned this to Mike today. He says, Michelle Obama. Well, maybe. Okay. But look, here's the point. If the little guys just won't eat the foods that are so good for them, and they prefer to have, I don't think they make Twinkies anymore, but they prefer to have 5-year-old Twinkies rather than today's wheatgrass on sourdough bread, whatever. If that's not if they just won't eat it, now what do?
yeah,
If
yeah.
your goal is to put food in their stomach, you better be giving them something that they feel they can choke down. They always want pizza. That's all that they really want out of life.
And immediately it comes to mind, if indeed this food is on a conveyor belt coming in, and they have to get rid of it, are they organizing with some other entity that does feed people?
No, and there's the other part. They're throwing it away. This is why the solid waste, this is why it's a little more interesting. Solid waste agency, Dale, please don't bore us. They're throwing it away. See, they're required to give certain amount to the kids. They're required to give them that under these federal grants and state grants, and they have to give them a certain amount. But I don't like asparagus. Well, we have to give it to you. So, and also what they're doing, and this would drive you crazy, they find that it's apparently easier to see that the kids get a certain amount, like with an eyedropper or something, a certain amount, if they put it into a little plastic cup. Remember when we were at school, you'd have, this big thing of applesauce, and they would, dip in there, whap, and the same thing with the meat, whap, what mystery meat, and the same thing with everything was in these little piles. What's that, dear? Mix it all together. No. Okay, so they find it easier if they put this applesauce in a little plastic container. Well, can you imagine what waste there is, not only with the applesauce, but that the plastic container probably costs more than the applesauce.
Yep.
With a little metal top that you can peel. It's got to be metal, of course. So you got a metal top, you've got a plastic container filled full of a little bit of applesauce, and the kids don't like applesauce, or it's warm. Ugh. Remember warm milk in school? I don't really drink warm milk. Ugh. And so they don't want it. They would rather throw it away. They put an apple in front of them. Yeah, one bite. That's it. They're throwing it all away. We'll put up the video so you can see the guy saying in his own words. Is he right? Is he full of beans? Well, only if he likes beans.
Yeah, I don't know, Dale. That's there's where the public would have to end up having a book to say, where's all this coming from? What's happening? What's driving this? And I ran onto a subject a few years ago where you realize that a student who's special, however that's defined, gives more money to the district that has the special student. So there is interest in seeing a certain amount of students become special, and various tests help make them special.
Oh no. Oh no, I can just see it. Oh no. Suddenly there's more special people. It's like Diane Hoover coming in and saying, "Good news. Our infant mortality rate." I'm not making this up. She did. Our infant mortality rate is up, so we're going to get more money. Oh, that is good news, says Cheryl Walker. And Keith Eck is like, "Well, oh no, but that's good news," says Cheryl Walker. More money.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a,
This is no exaggeration, guys. Go
it
ahead.
really is. Education's got its own issues, and I could see this as another one and you know, you're absolutely right. Even the food that's being thrown away, let's say we null that and say, okay, there's more food and it's coming, but the plastic containers, the metal, you know, the little lift off, and it's not even being used.
Nope.
I mean, save it for tomorrow.
Yep.
You know, do you want this? No, thank you. We'll save it for tomorrow for the kid who wants it.
They're required to put it on their plate, on their tray. They're required to give it to them. But I don't like lima beans. I don't like them either. Maybe they're your favorite. They're not my favorite. Does
right.
rutabagas? No, thank you. I've never even tasted a rutabaga, and I'm enough of a kid still to say I don't want rutabagas. I just don't like the way it sounds. Keep it away from me.
By the way, they're quite good.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll take your word for it. Okay, so on Tuesday evening, I went to the fair board. How interesting can that be, Dale? Well, they were there talking about the BMX track. Again, many people would say, how interesting can that be? Well, look, this is a very controversial subject. This BMX track, it's affected by ODOT, who wants to build this big, highway extension thing right through there because, what a trouble there is in that area, really. Okay, so they want to put it right through that area of the BMX bike. Well, the BMX bicycle riders have been doing that on county property on the fairgrounds. One of the problems is that there's been a big hullabaloo with the fairgrounds management, because they're losing money every month. They're losing a lot of money every year on the BMX bike because they don't have two nickels to rub together. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can. They're doing it as a labor of love, but and it affects a lot of kids. My nephew used to ride the stuff. He'd always lose, but he loved doing it. And so they can't afford it. They can't afford to give it away. They would make more money just parking RVs in that building, a lot more money than they do with the BMX bikers. And so they said, look, we're sorry to say this, but that's what it is. So there was this Facebook stuff that went on, and people from the BMX community were just reaming the fair grounds management and by extension the county commissioners. Well, just to let you know, it hasn't been totally resolved, but the head guys from the BMX bike community, they showed up. We shot tape of this too. I did. Through a long, boring meeting, but this part was interesting, where they were saying, look, now that we look at your numbers, we didn't know what the numbers were before. I wish you'd shared them with us a little bit better. We can see this is just not making sense. It's not penciling out. We're business guys too. We can see that you just can't keep sustaining this. We cannot blame you. We just don't blame you for making this decision, because it's not making any economic sense at all.
Yeah,
it's not. So they promised to go back to the Facebook community and say, now, simmer down, you guys. You're being unfair. We're doing the best that we can, but who can blame them? There's always going to be somebody. But a quarter of our job here at badcounty.com is trying to get people to say, hey, no, wait a minute. That's just not right. Okay, so there's other ways of doing things. Okay, so.
Well, and I want to ask you on
Please.
that. Is this because of the new management that we just?
No, it's not. This is a decision by the fair board that's been there for a while. It's a decision by Mary Groves, who's still the fair manager until the new person comes in on the 21st. I think it's either the 17th or the 21st. And so that new person, to the best of my knowledge, had no hand in this. But the real bottom line is, even the BMX bike management guy said, now that we know the details, because we didn't know them before, who can possibly blame you? I mean, it's been a labor of love, but there's only so much you can do, and you guys are losing your shirt on this every month, and that's just not right, and we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And good for the fair board actually, because
Yes.
another way that priorities happen. And in government, priorities are rare. And I'm glad to see them sitting down and saying, okay, priorities, we can't do this and this. Good.
Right. Okay. On the Wednesday weekly business session, there was a little bit of blather. It was a pretty fast meeting. There was, not a lot of controversy except for one thing. So a guy gets up and he says, "What's this deal about food and friends?" See, we're dealing with all of these hot issues. None of them are burning down the house issues like the levy was, but they're all pretty hot issues with a lot of very angry people. And so they said, "What's this deal about evicting food and friends, who they say feed 70,000 people a year? With it used to be called Meals on Wheels, senior meals kind of thing, and they've been sitting in part of the 4-H Extension Service building now for over a year, and so, or maybe it's 5 years. I'm sorry, I'll put up a video about it. And so, they're angry with the county commissioners. So this guy gets up, this semi-informed guy, he gets up and he starts reading the riot act about how it's their fault that all this is happening. They're saying, no, no, it's not us. Well, they're not supposed to respond. Their own rule is we're not going to respond. Well, they did to this, buddy. They not only responded immediately to that and the very hurt feeling, well, it's got nothing to do with us. Yeah. But they also responded after public comments, and then they responded again just spontaneously after that, and then they responded again at the end of the meeting during their protected time, and then came back. I mean, it was like 7 times, 84 times, or whatever. They just felt like we need to respond to you. Okay, so a lot of it makes sense, except the guy's starting to read from this email that he got that says, well, this and this and this about the county commissioners, they should have done this and they should have done that, and nobody was informed and nobody knew and all the rest of the stuff. And so then he sits down, and then one of the commissioners says, well, who wrote that email? Now, see, my attitude is, since they don't answer our questions, unless we put in a request for information, I don't answer their questions. In fact, I told them one time, this was fun. I said, if you have any questions, you fill out a request for information, you pay a little research fee, and you file it with our secretary.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they always do. We're supposed to be the bosses, and that's what we have to do. We have to pay to get information. So, but this guy comes back up and he starts to answer there. No, I just want to know who's. No, you've got to sit down. No, I just that. He did say, come on up. Well, they didn't want to hear. So just wanted to know, well, the person who wrote it was actually the guy that's in charge of RVCOG, that's Rogue Valley Council of Governments, who were the ones affected. But the number one reason, according to Simon Hare, and I've heard him say it, is that we're involved with Rogue Valley Council of Governments, is those are the guys that run the, no longer called Meals on Wheels, the Food and Friends program. And so they're pretty touchy and upset about this. The RV Cog guys are. And by the way, just a little side note, this Food and Friends program is run by Dave Toller. Oh no, ghosts of Christmas past. Hey. Okay, so anyway, there was a lot of controversy. And the commissioners were like, well, you can trust us. We don't have anything to do with this decision. You can trust us. We're telling you, and you ought to believe us. Remember when Keith Eck was saying you can trust us? We had nothing to do with that last levy, and we've all seen the videotape. And he was so upset. Why, you just don't seem to believe us, right? For 2 reasons. One is you don't always tell us the truth. You often don't. And second, we've seen the videotape, so we know you're lying to us. Well, I'm going to clear the room. And no. You're lying to us again. Don't do it. So anyway, now they need your trust. Oh, we can be trusted. We can. Why? We're always honest with you. Yeah, but here's the bottom line. Turns out that the 4-H Extension Service, half of their membership, because they have a board of 6 people, half of them, 3 of them, are the county commissioners.
Oh boy. Okay.
So, okay, maybe this is something they needed to do, which is somewhat similar to the BMX bike thing, And maybe they also feel that we don't want Food and Friends to go out of business or whatever. But don't tell us you have absolutely nothing to do with it, since half of the membership of the organization that made this decision, is the county commissioners.
Yeah.
You liars. Don't lie to us. Just tell us straight. Well, you can trust us. We've got nothing to do with this. Yes, you do. You're on the board. You're half of the board.
You know, the flip side of that, Dale, is even worse. They don't know they are half the board.
What?
That would be worse, wouldn't it? That comes to mind that they don't know.
Every time they say something kind of reasonable, okay, it does kind of make sense. I mean, there's going to have to be a permanent place, and they're going to work to see a permanent place, and they don't want to see it go out of business. Well, you got to feel a little sympathy for them until they say they had nothing to do with the decision, and then
Yeah.
don't want to tell you that they're half of the board that made the decision.
Yeah, yeah. And
They can't help themselves. They got to lie.
it seems to be a qualification for being elected.
For membership in Rotary? Yeah, probably. Yeah.
The little I've heard of this, the question I had was, okay, if they're being moved on because they paid no rent, is my understanding. Well, free you're a beggar if you're you're subject. But the people who are staying there don't pay any rent either.
Right.
And I'm saying, okay, just a minute here. So
right.
You've got an equal, and so what you did is make a decision. These people stay for no rent. These people go. There's no gain to the county.
So if you're an older person, well, if you're an old enough person, maybe you do need Food and Friends. If you're generally an older person of a certain kind of mindset, and you love the idea of canning peaches, okay, that's cool. Canning peaches and having classes about how to can peaches, as an example, is more important than feeding these senior citizens who can't make it for themselves. Really?
Yeah. No, and we have a neighbor who does. I call it still Meals on Wheels because it's way back in my mind, but his wife has just had to go be in assisted living. He's alone. He's in his mid to late 80s. And yes, the food is important. But you know what really he talks about? That he sees a person.
Yes.
Life. And, somebody knows he's alive. And the reverse is true. Somebody does come in and say, hey, how you doing today? And they can, if they're there regularly, they also are kind of these other sets of eyes on our seniors. And
well, the important thing to me about all this is I'm sitting there at this meeting, I'm watching stuff. That's what you guys said you want me to do. Watch over what's happening. And I come back and I talk to you about it. Talk about what I've seen. And I'm feeling some sympathy for these commissioners because people are jumping all over them. And it seems like they're doing whatever they can. They don't want Food and Friends to go out of business. Don't say that we're against senior citizens. I'm thinking, well, they're probably right this time. They're probably right. It's the people that are jumping on them are being unfair. And then there's always an and then. There's always and then. And then Keith Heck starts off and then they all follow him. Well, we had nothing to do with this decision. Oh, man, don't say that. You just had us. We were on your side. And now you're going to lie to us. Don't lie to us.
Yeah, I know. They tell a lie when truth would work better.
It would. It's like Larry Graves out at the airport. They had that airport day. Not airport days, airport day. Mike and I went out there, and we didn't see anything worth videotaping, honestly. It was a nice time. People were having a nice time, okay? Now, it was connected to an item where you had to go pay to see old cars or a collection of cars or something. And so not all the crowd was there for the airplanes. Okay, so as it was last year and the year, there were hundreds of people. That's very good, hundreds of people. Well, I went specifically to see how many people, and I went back one more time. I didn't even tell Mike about this. I went back one more time just to kind of drive by slowly and see if it had changed. Maybe the crowds doubled. They hadn't. They were actually a little less. Okay. There were hundreds of people. That's very good. But every year, Larry Graves and Cheryl Walker say there were thousands of people No. Why do you need to? Don't exaggerate. There were hundreds of people. That's good. Don't tell us there were thousands.
Yeah.
What is this lifestyle choice where you've got to lie? Why? Why?
Yeah.
There were not thousands of people.
As Mark Twain would say, practice, no doubt.
Okay, so I went on Wednesday night to the city council meeting. Sorry, I'm doing most of the talking, but I'm the guy that goes to meetings, and then I tell Mike, and then you guys have outraged reactions. Okay, so I went to the city council meeting. Yes, I went to the city council. I'm sorry, you got to say that again. I was talking on top.
I'll be more outraged. I didn't realize.
Oh, yes, please do. Okay, it's part of the show. And so this news show, okay. So I said to the city councilors, I said, you know, it used to be that you could write a letter to the editor, like of the Daily Courier, and he would say, and it was a letter to the editor. And he would say, editor, I don't agree with the way you've been covering X story. Well, that's easy to do because Jim Moore's been the reporter and he just skips over entire stories. I don't mean tiny stories. I mean, $100,000 cost overrun is not a tiny story, okay? And that's a story anywhere else but in Grants Pass and in the Courier because of Jim Moore. He blocks the news. He doesn't cover the news. He covers up the news. Okay. So I went to them and I said, it used to be you could write a letter to the editor and you could say, editor, I don't agree with the way that you're covering the story. As a matter of fact, here's a couple of things about the story you haven't printed, and therefore I kind of blame you for not covering the story right, you guys. Get it better. So I wrote such a letter. And they printed the letter, changed some of the stuff that was in it. Okay. And then at the end, where I said, and why isn't this in the Courier? You can see it at badcounty.com where we have the original videotape. They decided to cut that part out. What?
Yeah.
They can do that? But they cut out the part that criticized them, and they didn't want the part on there that tells you where you can go see for yourself.
Yeah.
What the heck? Well, why would they do that? So whenever you go to the city council meeting, Darren Fowler, the mayor, says, now don't expect that anyone will answer you because the rules say they made these rules up themselves. This isn't some federal rule or something that they won't respond. Don't expect us to respond. We can't respond. We won't respond. Those are the rules. So I tell him the story. And so he responds when I sit down. And he says, well, I guess we'll just have to look that up for ourselves to see if it's true. And I say from the audience, you're responding. Remember when you said you weren't going to respond? They just can't help themselves. Okay, one of the things I said is, one of the stories that's not in the Courier is Mike interviewed the mayor. This was really revealing. You guys probably don't know this. Some of you don't. He said to the mayor, well, on the city tax thing, and you could see the mayor was paying a lot of attention to what I was saying. On the city tax, what happens if a bunch of businesses go out of business or it's a disaster for them, or I don't remember the exact words, but we've got the video. Half of the town goes out of business, whatever, that's exaggeration. What if it doesn't work? What will you do? And the mayor's answer was, well, we'd keep it going for another year or two to see if there's any difference. Really?
Difference?
That's their commitment to the business community of Grants Pass. If you know that it's a disaster, let it keep going for another year or two.
Well, you want to see how bad a disaster it is.
This is how attuned this city council is, and this mayor is. He's up for re-election, by the way. This is how attuned they are to city businesses. What the heck are you saying? If it's obvious that it's not working, then you stop it immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm telling them, and you've all heard this ad nauseum, what it was that the city attorney said is that they can put stuff on, take it off. They don't even need your vote. They're only doing it for political reasons. He said that in court. We dragged him into court. He said it. He was kind of bragging about it. We don't need your permission to put a property tax on. You don't? Really? So I mentioned this. So Mark Bartholomew, the city attorney, when I'm saying this to the city council, starts laughing. Well, you know what I do. I say, and Mark Bartholomew, the city attorney, is laughing. Why are you laughing, Mr. Bartholomew? Then he suddenly stopped laughing. And then David Reeves was sitting next to him. He started laughing because that's who David Reeves is. We got to say goodbye to David Reeves for sure. Okay, that's one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse that's left over from the old group of people that were all tossed out. Okay, he's left. But I couldn't believe Mark Bartholomew was just laughing about this, right? And the other counselors are looking like, I've never heard this before. Those are the guys that are representing you.
Yeah. I did see your letter in the Courier
Yes, sir.
regarding Bartholomew, and I said, "Whoa, is that an exception? What's going on there?" That's I've not seen anything else. Maybe you haven't written anything else, but that's the first one I've ever seen in
Well,
the
Jim
Courier.
Moore was at these meetings. He was in, I think he was in the courtroom, but at least there was somebody from the Courier there. We videotaped it. We had two cameras, and we put it out there for people to see. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel. No, it's not a train. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I was introduced on Wednesday morning to the brand new county commissioner's reporter for the Courier. Oh, really? And I was introduced Wednesday night because I went up and said I wasn't introduced. I went up and introduced myself to the new city reporter because strike up the bad, buddy. The entire reason that badcounty.com is here is because the Courier, Jim Moore, is retiring.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You'll hear it here. First and only place you hear this, and it's not in the Courier.
Oh, wow. Okay. That does shift things.
It's huge. It's like saying goodbye to the chief financial officer, Rosemary Paget. It's like saying goodbye to the county attorney, Steve Rich. It's like saying goodbye to a number of these bad actors that have been involved with county government all this time. Jim Moore, the blockage of news in Grants Pass, the whole reason this bad county exists, he's going to retire. And they seem like wonderful young people. How are you? You know, I'd be happy to. I'll shoot you some of our. You know, you don't need to see our commentary. If you know, how about would you like to see the original videotape of what it was that the commissioners actually said? There's no need for a filter and filtering out all the blathery and bad stuff that they say. We don't need that. We can view for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a shift. That's a
Oh,
shift.
that's a huge shift. Now,
Yeah.
there's a possibility they'll be, resistance is futile. There's maybe they're going to be assimilated into the Borg. On the other hand, it's possible they got seem to have a good attitude. And so don't listen to us if you don't want to. But we've seen some changes. Look what happened when we did the story about County Fire. Look what happened when we kept talking about social media. Now they semi-regularly covers social media and what people are saying in the Courier. They've changed their graphic look. They seem to be doing more videos. Now they're going to replace Jim Moore with a couple of real reporters, I hope. I talked to them about two sources for a story. Ooh, that'd be a start. Yes, of course. Well, Jim doesn't do. You can be part of a story. You would think here we've got some lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce in a very odd marriage. There I am sitting next to the lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce, which is usually awful people, and they've done a lot of awful things, and blocking the news too. We're there at the same table. Would you think that the reporter from the Courier would interview that guy or me? Oh, no, no, no. They didn't even get the quotes in the newspaper. They interviewed Mark Bartholomew. They would have interviewed the judge. I think they interviewed the mayor. They interviewed everybody that's in favor of the tax. But what about the people on the other side? Oh no, we would never interview them. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
They interviewed the head of the Chamber of Commerce. Well, see, you got to be at a certain lofty role, and just because you're some citizen who happens to be sitting there, we were the first to drag this guy into court, and then they delayed it so that the Chamber of Commerce guy could be there. I don't think he did that good a job, and everybody else says that too, but they're not going to interview us. Maybe they will now. I don't know. It would be nice to talk with the actual newsmakers instead of writing about them with never even interviewing them or talking to them. Things may be changing. That's good news.
Shift in the wind. Yeah.
There's something in the wind, although I wouldn't call it what you just did. This is a family show. Okay, so the city. Another thing that's coming up with them is, let me just take a look at my note here. We talked about minimum standards. Okay, what's going to happen tomorrow? You guys may want to know about this. It depends on how you feel about Senate Bill 838. Just like the song. What is Senate Bill 838? Now, Bill, we talked about this. I think you can tell them in general what Senate Bill 838 is, right? If you can't,
Uh,
that's okay.
it's new to me, but it is a bill that stops any mining using automated what's the
Engine
motorized
driven, motorized, yeah.
motorized equipment in the rivers and I suppose lakes or streams and
Right. People used to go out with a pan. Maybe they still do that, but they don't generally take the stuff and put it into a shaker and then put a pan underneath it. What they do now is they've got these little um, a good sound effects, Dale. A dredge thing, and it's usually like a two-person operation, or maybe a mom and pop, or maybe the kids are there splashing in the water and helping out dad or whatever. And so it's part of very low-key economic tourism. Okay, and it makes a little bit of silt come up in the water, but it fairly quickly dissipates. We're not generally talking about stuff that turns the whole river brown from up here to all the way down to the coast. Just a little bit of an area there, and there are very very tight restrictions. You can't even keep the gasoline can near if it's motor powered. It's got to be like 50 feet away or some other ridiculous thing. How do you get the gasoline over there? What, in a thimble? So it's real low key, and that's the thing I talked about, where you can see the third of the three testimonies to the feds about, can we make room for these guys? Really, it's economic tourism too. It's not as many as fishermen, but I mean, people are coming up from California where they can't even do that anymore, and they're coming up here. Hundreds and hundreds of people want to come up and try their hand a little bit of mining. Gold mining is just a craze in Europe, and I think they would love to come here and just do a little bit of, oh, I found some gold in Oregon. Oh, California? No, that's against the law now. But in Oregon, oh, really? Well, they've got a blue and gold map. It's near Gold Hill. I mean, it's near Gold Beach. We were built on gold, and so can we just have a little thing left over? I'm not talking about going out there with big huge shovel, but can we make, why is one hobby okay and the other's not? As long as it's kind of like a hobby, can we do it? Can we make room for them? I don't want to do it, but I don't see why they can't. Anyway, there's going to be a meeting tomorrow, and it's going to be at 3:30 in Medford. We'll be there with our camera. Of course we'll be there. You know we will. It's a rally against Senate Bill 838, which wants to restrict this. It's going to be at Alan Bates' office. Yes, okay. If you don't know who that is, then sorry. Anyway, it's going to be there.
wasn't
Yeah.
he the one Dale sponsored this?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
He's a pretty liberal congressman, state congressman, and he sponsored this. And so they're going to go out there and they're going to say, we don't like this. It doesn't necessarily mean that badcounty.com or Bill Hunker or Mike Jones or anybody else is taking a stand, although they are taking a stand. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does mean that we try to be there when the GMO guys are saying Yahoo, or when they're saying, oh, what do you mean you're going to nullify the vote? Or when this thing happens with 838, we want people to get their say, just like when we went to this meeting with the BLM and the Forest Service, and everybody gets to talk, and then you get to look at it, and without it being filtered through the courier, you get a chance to decide, well, who's right and who's wrong. This is my opinion. It's America. That'll
Exactly.
be tomorrow. And then Mike will be back, and then I'll talk with Mike about what we saw. Mike thinks he's going to be there. Okay. Bill will be there. We'll get this guy, Stuart, there also. He says he's going to come. You need to meet Stuart. He's a pretty good guy. Um, I will be on tomorrow morning on KMED again. This is 3 times in 1 week, not as a caller, not Rika Brown, okay? 3 times as a guest of Bill on the telephone, giving them an update about the news, because we're covering so much now that it's stuff that nobody else is covering, nobody else knows about, nobody else knows the quotes. And so I'll go and I'll talk to him about some of the things that have been happening recently with some of the stories we talked about here. We can't take an hour, but I'll try to condense it down into 15 to 20 minutes. And I'll share that information with the 2 new reporters at the Courier. Love to do so. I told them, I said, whenever we can, we're going to eat your lunch. We will carry the story first, and after we got it out there, we're happy to share it with you so that you can write a more enlightened story, not based on our blathering, but based on the videotape that we shot, which has the commissioners blathering or the city council.
True public service, by the way.
Well, we're not doing it because of the money, that's for sure. And we're still waiting for that loony lady that's going to tell us who's funding us. Because I don't know. I want to hear from her who's funding us.
You haven't heard from her recently?
No, I said to her last time, how's that going? She says, are you worried? Yeah, I'm worried. I don't know who's funding us, and I really need to know. Brother. Okay, so now, do you have any further blathering to do, Bill? I could hardly get a word in edgeways around you, bud.
No, I'm enjoying listening to you as I show fairly regularly anyway. But it's Dale, it's good to have a place where the background is able to be given, and I appreciate that. I know a lot of the viewers do. Can we all watch every show? No, sorry, I apologize.
What do you mean no? What do you mean no?
But when we do, you're able to review, catch us up, and it is as County Fire proves this week, it's making a difference. And I know there's not scores, but perhaps hundreds that appreciate that difference.
One thing that you can all do out there, not trying to harangue you, but one thing you can do is simply engage your neighbor in some kind of conversation. Someone you see at a club, someone you see in the, it happens to me all the time in the grocery store. People come up to me and I feel a little trepidation. You're Dale Matthews, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I have no choice. And they say, wow, I love your show. That mic is okay. And you guys are doing a good job. And I wouldn't know a lot of the stuff except for you. Well, that's true. You actually wouldn't know a lot of the stuff except for us. It's not like we're making it up or even having to do investigative journalism. It's all right there. All somebody needs to do is go to the meeting and say, that sounds like a story. Why is it that? Why do we know nothing about this? Tell your neighbors what's going on. The first step toward a better community here is, now bring out the violins, Dale. The first step toward a better community is first we have to know what's happening.